Ladies and gentlemen, back again. Another busy weekend of quality racing. Dill, Dame, how are we feeling?
Hello, Torty.
Always good next to Dill. Always.
Thank you.
He's getting sick of me. This is 4 weeks in a row now, so
Yeah.
we might have to trade him out next week.
Love being on the show.
Couple of crook soldiers, so I think the panel, once healthy, might be changing
4
up
Group
shortly.
1s, Dill. What's not to be excited about?
Track from Playmaster Shear is the widest with Ruben.
We'll start at Flemington. Newmarket handicap to get us going. Quickly touch on the head-to-heads before we get into the juicy stuff. We've got Bivouac versus Exceedance and the Inevitable versus Libertini.
Yep.
Now, punting form, they've gone with both of that first head-to-head that I mentioned there.
Yep.
Exceedance and Bivouac, an effective price of about $270 with an equal staking on them both.
Yep. So we mention this every single week, Dame on, but high confidence bet for punting form, you just have to take notice with the Dutch bet here. Bivouac was absolutely smashed in the betting a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't show anything at all. So
Unsuited that day,
yeah, there was confidence in the horse, and now it's back. It didn't run that badly, in my opinion. It was just a very strong rails bias that day. And Exceedance as well. They're expecting Exceedance to probably sit around the back, Bivouac be up the front. Two best horses in the race is a Dutch bet. They reckon you'll definitely find the winner between those two.
Yeah, like obviously there's some extremely high quality horses in this race, and it's the first time we see Exceedance after winning the Coolmore Stud down the straight at Flemington last start on Derby Day. As we know, Dill, that it was a bit wet, bit of give in the ground that day, and I think by all reports there might be a little bit on Flemington on the weekend.
Yep.
So something similar there. It's a tough one for me because Exceedance is obviously first up here.
Yep.
I think when you've got a colt of that kind of stature, you want to pick a race that can maintain that stud value, and I think they wouldn't put it out in a race like this if they didn't like its chances. But obviously, yeah, Bivouac is the main threat coming out off that last start performance where it was 3 wide the trip. But yeah, Bivouac and Exceedance aren't the only two things in the field, Dill. Loving Gabby and G-Trash, or however you say that name, I can't say
G-Trash,
it. G-Trash, yes. Yep. That won the Black Caviar Lightning Stakes.
Yep.
Both coming from that race into here.
Mm-hmm.
Any opinion on those two?
Yeah, Loving Gabby, like I mentioned it last time, Craig Williams gets the absolute best out of this horse. Like, it just doesn't give in, and it's going to be in the finish. Gitra, I'm not too sure currently what the odds are on the exchange. Whether it can produce another performance like it did in the Lightning, I'm not too sure. Dispatch is one of my favourites going around with Jamie Carr on board. That'll be near the front. Mystico and Trope as well. Anything could happen there, but I'm not too overall sure on the record, but I feel like punting form do really well on these straight races as well. They seem to pick the eyes out of them. So, Exceedance and Bivouac, I'd be happy to stick with those two, but it's Libertini looks a danger there as well.
Libertini was also in that Coolmore Stud, ran pretty well that day, finished 4th, I think. It was a disappointing last start, but it was solid down the straight, so I think it can definitely run a race too. That's about $12 on Betfair. So yeah, $2.75 Dutch bet for those two of the best 3-year-olds going around in the country, so I'm sure this race will be sure to draw a lot of attention.
Yeah, lovely.
Flemington race 6, that is, 20.
That's the one. And on to race 8, the Australian Cup here.
Yep.
Head-to-heads also in this race. We've got Kingswell Dream versus 50 Stars and Avilius versus Regal Power. Punting form going with the first one we mentioned there, Kingswell Dream, currently around $8.40 on the exchange. So
yeah, they reckon it's going to get a good trail behind the leader, Miss Siska, here, Torty. Reckon the tempo is going to be a bit quicker, which will suit Kingswell Dream. Look, it's hard. Avilius is one of Sammy Miller's favourites, who's spruiking it again. Constantinople probably wasn't terrible last start. I didn't think too much of it. Southern France resuming in this race as well. Damon.
Bound to declare the Melbourne Cup winner. First up here.
Craig Williams sticks again, 40, which is a big tick for me. You've got to love that. 50 Stars as well was really strong last week. Probably a good lay opportunity there as well. It's going to come up quite short. There's a lot of quality in this race.
It's an interesting one.
Punting form, you got to be with it with the map at Kingswell Dream up front. Probably one to watch in the market late as well, I reckon, Torty. But a medium confidence bet there for Kingswell Dream for punting form, the Australian Cup.
It's an interesting one, just quickly. 50 Stars is punting form deal.
Punting form data.
Yeah, 50 Stars ran 14.5 lengths better than the all-average benchmark last week. So that's a massive figure coming into this race. Just about the best figure in the race, to be fair, coming in. So whether or not they can back up from the Blamey Stakes into this remains to be seen. I think, horses that tend to back up 1 week later on in their prep probably see the ramifications of that. But
Yep.
can it run another figure like that this week? I think
Mm.
if it does, it's definitely a chance to win.
Definitely possible. Probably just the price factor.
And the
around
last
it,
thing
I
on
think.
Avilius went around, I sort of picked this up before, went around as a $1.65 favourite in this race last year. And it went on to get rolled though. So
Times have changed.
yeah, times have changed.
Yeah, so
Indeed.
Kings Will Dream there, Torty confidence bet, medium confidence bet.
That's the one indeed. Alrighty, and we'll head up the coast now to Sydney. We've got a couple Group 1s at Randwick taking place on Randwick Guineas Day. First up is race 5, Canterbury Stakes. Elise versus Sabatiano is the head-to-head there. Got any thoughts on that one? Or should we pop
Yes.
straight into punting form?
Punting form, medium confidence bet on Sabatiano, Torty, and I think Sabatiano is the best bet of the weekend. Last
have it.
start was just so impressive, just absolutely brained them. James McDonald sticks, which is really, really good. Elise was pretty good in the Apollo, Damon. Found that inside rail and found the better ground against Dreamforce. And
Yeah, I think it drifted that day too.
Yeah,
pretty
it was-
strongly, but was too good.
it was-
Market guy got that one wrong.
It was a strong drift. It was like 280 out to 420 pretty much all day, Torty. Couple of interesting runners in this race. The Bostonian, be good to your mother, but Sabatiano, I'm very, very happy to be with this horse.
Yeah, I think the market kind of will have the head-to-head between Sabatiano and Standout.
Yep.
Even though we've got the Betfair head-to-head between the two Godolphin runners.
Mm-hmm.
I know when we looked at those deals, we thought that was not a bad little angle there to have two things going around in blue against each other. But yeah, I think outside of Sabatiano, which will look to dictate kind of the race from the front,
Yep.
probably try and lull him to sleep a little bit and then kind of use her turn of foot to just really accelerate her away from the field.
Yep.
Standout is probably the one that will be her biggest threat, I think, in this race.
Yep.
Obviously, Sabatiano will be at the front.
Yep.
Standout will be mapped somewhere towards the back. So
Yeah.
whether or not they stay in striking distance is another thing. But I think in a small field like this, it really lends itself to the things at the front
Mm-hmm.
being favoured a lot of the time.
Yep. And I
There's
think,
not going to be anything that kind of like is going to push forward and challenge her early on.
yep, I think that the rail is going to be interesting here as well, Torty. I think there's a few showers going to be around tomorrow. A lot of the pros are playing around like a soft 6 or a soft 7. Are probably looking to run down the middle of the track. So if Sabatiano maybe isn't in the lead and is maybe one out, one back, could be a few issues there, but it's got lightning speed out of the gate, and I expect it to be far too good.
Yeah,
for
her
her.
times over the last 600 this prep have been very, very solid, head and shoulders above this field.
Yep.
So I think, yeah, definitely the one to beat. Standout comes in off a barrier trial in between the Expressway Stakes,
Yep.
which it won,
Yep.
beating Colding and Elise that day. So yeah, interesting race, small field, definitely one to watch. You'd probably like to see a little bit more runners in a Group 1 race like this, but yeah, there's a big one coming up.
Indeed, there is. Race 7, the Randwick Guineas, feature race of the day up there in Randwick.
Mm-hmm.
Castelvecchio versus Shadow Hero is the first head-to-head we've got on the exchange, and Microphone versus Warning there. Punting form, low confidence on Shadow Hero.
Yeah, the issues on the map here, Damon, punting form have absolutely no idea how this race is going to play out with so many runners. Shadow Hero and Castelvecchio probably the two standouts in this race. Well, not for Dano, which we'll get to in a minute, but a low confidence bet on Shadow Hero here, but just on the way that it may play out from the gate.
It probably maps midfield more so than it did last start in the Hobartville.
Yep.
Like, this is the interesting thing for this race. All but two runners, Conqueror and obviously Super Scratch and Star Maze, came out of that race.
Mm-hmm.
So whilst there's a heap of horses that are probably looking for more, we know that Castelvecchio will be, probably Shadow Hero will be, as well as Warning.
Yep.
A lot of these horses come in to this race at very different stages of their prep.
Yep.
I think Super Seth, if it was to run in this race before unfortunately being scratched, was ideally suited. This probably would have been its grand final.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's wide open now, completely wide open.
It is indeed.
And yeah, there's two ways to assess this. Obviously, you have Microphone and Brandenburg, who are those middle distance kind of runners. This might even be about their peak trip.
Yep.
Versus the more staying types.
Yep.
Over 2,000 meters that are probably a little bit underdone coming into this race. So yeah, I know that. Do you want to go into Dano in a second?
Yeah.
He has Microphone on top, who is that kind of middle distance runner.
He does, and partly because of how open the race is, Torty, so he's happy to be with Microphone, rating it as a $5.50 chance. He's got 0.7% of his bank on Microphone and Brandenburg to win this race. He's rated Brandenburg as a $6 chance. Both of them coming out of the Hobartville. He's got the winning age, the winning standard at 97, which would only account for 5 horses in this race, including Warning as well, which I don't mind. Dan O'Sullivan has that as a $15 chance.
Yeah, it's quite interesting what he's ridden there in some of his running previews. Like Brandenburg hasn't even run close to a 97. I think his 91 was his previous best rating, but he's just expecting improvement from him. So something to take
it's
there.
tough. Like Brandenburg obviously beat Microphone last start, but jumped at 41-1. So I mean, if you respect the SP profile, you're probably better around and go with Microphone here. So it's an extremely tough race to assess, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see that the way that it is run. Castelvecchio is probably going to be sitting behind Shadow Hero, so it's going to have to run past it here. And as we know, both of them look to run forward and run on in the last 600. But Shadow Hero's beaten Castelvecchio every single time they've come up against each other. So it's a little form line to read into this race if you want to. So
incredibly tough race.
Very tough.
So I think bet with caution in this race is probably the angle, but I mean, it's a Group 1 feature race at Randwick, the Randwick Guineas, which everyone will be talking about. So look, if you want to have an angle, I think Shadow Hero is probably the consensus of most people.
I think if Castelvecchio sort of drifts out a little bit, maybe to like the $9-10 mark, if it was ever to do that, I think that would be a great play. But you've got to respect the market as well. If they're coming for someone like Shadow Hero, I think you just got to be with it.
Yeah, if Sam Miller was here, he'd be tipping Castelvecchio. I know that for a fact.
Without a doubt.
Definitely. One more race, Torty, the Race Colours Challenge in Randwick. Punting form have gone with a median confidence bet on Red Zell, which is one of their favourites. They seem to use Red Zell all the time. I think the talking point here, Damon,
it's an honest type.
The talking point here is Nature Strip. After what happened last start, it started, I think, $1.48 BSP and then never showed anything, likely to be the winner.
Quite short again, isn't it?
Santa Ana Lane back in this race, Damon, one of your favourites. But median confidence bet there with punting form on Red Zell.
Yeah, I think its performances against the benchmark is what is going to lend itself to punting form tipping it a lot of the time. It's a very, very honest horse. I think for the most part, you know what you're going to get. It's going to roll forward. It's going to be tough, and it's going to take something good to beat it. We saw that last start was on the better part of the track. Nature Strip obviously went to the grandstand side. But yeah, Santa Ana Lane's the other interesting one here. We know that will do the complete opposite and get back and run on. First up, it's going to take something good to beat Red Zell and Nature Strip for mine. It's definitely not its grand final. I'll be looking towards a TJ Smith again.
This is the sort of price, I think, Torty, that you really want to look at Santa Ana Lane. You never really want to dive in when it was paying $2, or even when it went to Hong Kong, it was paying $1.70. All of its best performances were around like the $5, $6, $7 mark. I believe it's currently $5 right now on Betfair. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this horse returns. And geez, if there's any market support on the day, I'm going to be with it straight up.
There we have it. All right, I think that'll do us for the racing.
Big day racing
for today. We'll hop over to UFC 248. Our man Gugave is on the ground in Vegas. He's made the trip over there.
In the building.
Yeah, he's pumped. As you can understand, this is his bread and butter.
We're going to get him live over the mic, but Betfair budgetary constraints said that we couldn't get that one in there.
Pretty hard to do that.
Couldn't get that one past the finance team, sadly.
But
nonetheless, even on holiday, our man Gugave has sent us his previews. Doesn't have a strong angle for the main event between Israel Adesanya and Yoel Romero. But he does, if he was having a bet on that, he'd be going Adesanya by decision, purely just because of the volume of his striking. He can see him outworking Romero and getting the decision win there. But the co-main event between Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Weili Zhang.
I'm glad you said it, Torty, because I was not
pretty
impressed.
impressive.
I was just going to say JJ or Joanna, because I've got absolutely no idea how to say that.
I did do a little bit of practice before we got on camera.
How to say her name?
Legit, there's a video on YouTube saying how to pronounce Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
Hey Siri, how do you say her name?
So yeah, back to business there. He's got a 5-unit hammer on Jędrzejczyk there.
It's a bomb.
A lot of hype around Weili Zhang. Emphatic win in a title fight last fight against Jessica Andrade. But similar to the Adesanya fight, he just sees Joanna having just too much volume.
Gugabe's sort of mentioned that Joanna just really needs to get through round one. I think if Zhang's best chance of winning this fight is in the opening first 5 minutes. One thing for me, Torty, is when Gugabe gets these tips in as soon as the fight is announced, like it just really reflects a lot of confidence from him, and he did that here. And as soon as the prices went up, he was straight into it.
Straight.
Anything over $2.50 there for Gugabe at 5 units looks a pretty good play.
What's the price now? Because Gugabe would have got these tips in 2 weeks ago.
I think it still is $2.50 on the
still
exchange.
might be just under 248 maybe.
Okay.
So
Yep.
it's still floating around there, still at a good price, worth taking.
Yep.
We'll quickly touch on one of the fights further down the card as well. He's got Jose Quinones with a 2-unit bet at $3.90 to beat Sean O'Malley, who's had about 2 years outside of the octagon. So
Sean O'Malley's a bit easier to say.
Yes.
yeah. Thanks to finish the episode with a name that's easy to pronounce. We'll
Dropping bombs here.
$4.30 currently for that one on the exchange right now. So it looks a good price.
So he's drifted out of it
It's
as
a big
well.
price.
He could come back in.
A little bit more juice.
Yep.
All right.
What we will touch on, Tawdy, is we're dropping our AFL ebook today. So recording this on Friday. It's dropping today.
Yep.
We'll have some previews for the AFL itself in the coming weeks.
Yep.
We'll have a launch show for itself. But if you want to check out our ebook on the hub, all yours.
Yep.
Number one Brownlow and AFL resource for the 2020 season.
Yep. Plenty of, we mention it every week, Tordy, or I seem to. There's Super Rugby, there's the T20 World Cup final, which is on Sunday. Dan O'Sullivan has a Newmarket preview, which we haven't touched on in this show, which I believe he'll be getting at too soon. So make sure you check that out on the Betfair Hub. There's so much more racing content that we don't mention. Terry, Perth man Terry's absolutely airborne right now, so make sure you check out his tips.
Betfair Insider.
There's so much going on the Betfair Hub, so just make sure you check it out and chew on it.